Okay, number 77, choosing a mediumship teacher. That is the subject of today's video. As always, like it, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All of those things help other people to see these videos. So I always announce at the end of the previous week what the current week's video is going to be. I said it was going to be choosing a teacher, so it is. But I have to acknowledge that yesterday, Janet Nohavik died. And I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge her and thank her. I didn't know her personally. Everyone I know a lot of people who knew her personally, loved her. I've only heard exclusively good things about her. So thank you so much, Janet, for everything you did for our community. It wasn't just teaching, it wasn't just mediumship. And if you don't know who that is, one of her books, Where Two Worlds Meet, a lot of people call it required reading for mediumship. So a shout out to Janet Nohavik and thank you. And for those of you that miss her, I'm sorry for your loss. So, which brings us right nicely into famous people, famous mediums. Just because someone is famous for what they do doesn't mean that they can teach it. And I'm sure Janet could. I've only heard good things about her. It's not a reflection on her. But that criteria alone, oh, they're famous or they're really good. Even people who are not famous but who are outstanding mediums, it doesn't mean that they can teach. Most of them can. So I've had the privilege to know some really world-class outstanding musicians. And most of them can also teach when they decide to. I've been able to either audit their master classes or I know who's hosting the event, so I've been able to watch kind of from the background. And most of them are great teachers, but a couple of them couldn't really convey. It was kind of clunky how they taught. And I was surprised that someone who was so good at what they do couldn't bring that into teaching. So there's that. Just because someone is really good at what they do and or if they're famous, it doesn't mean that they're good teachers automatically. And even when they can teach, it doesn't mean that they're right about everything that they're saying. So, for example, there are two basic camps in mediumship that say anyone can be a medium, which is what I believe, or you're born that way. It's a special gift only for a few people. And everyone believes that completely, one or the other, right? So if you have two really outstanding mediums, both really good mediums, both really good teachers, and one is saying one thing and one is saying the other, one of them is wrong. So, if that's true, if teachers can be wrong like anyone else, then why bother with one? And so immediately I want to go back to they don't know everything. The teacher doesn't know everything, but they know a lot. If they're to the point where they're teaching, probably know a lot if they've been teaching for a while, if they have a good reputation. So you need to, in my opinion, glean what's useful from each experience. That's what I've done. And it's really the thing about taking an actual mediumship class is you can see other people like yourself who are, and you can see that it's possible. If you're brand new or have some experience, you see people doing it and you see that where they're stumbling, how you may have stumbled, and especially you see them getting better is really encouraging. It helps you to get better. I have an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. We had to do multiple presentations every week, and I began that program with some people who were terrible public speakers. And before the program ended 2 years later, maybe a little more than a year into it, they were outstanding. Everybody who graduated from that was an outstanding presenter. And so it's neat to see somebody improve like that. And it's confidence building in yourself to see that something is possible and to see people improve and to see yourself improve because there's more measurement when you're doing a class, an official class, rather than just like any random circle. Also, teachers will notice or see things in you that you don't notice or see about yourself. So there's that, and also they will come up with exercises that you've never heard of or that have never popped up in some kind of practice circle, whatever you've been doing. So I do recommend a teacher eventually. And so I want to talk about that process. You can do circles on your own. They're free. The vast majority are free. That's a great way to start. That's the way I started. But they're not as directed or as monitored as a formal class. And I do encourage eventually finding a teacher. I did at least 50, 60 circles before I paid anyone to teach me anything about mediumship. And so what I did was did a whole bunch of them. And then I noticed some people were consistently really good or outstanding. And so I privately contacted them and said, hey, you're really good at this. Is there someone you can recommend, or did you learn or take formal training? I'm sorry, I can suddenly hear a lot of noise outside. It's not my house, it's my neighbor's. And so they would recommend people, and I started researching whoever they recommended. So I watched any videos about them about them or that they did themselves, or interviews or anything. I thoroughly read their websites. I have to say, nobody's website particularly stands out to me as particularly great or outstanding. But I do think referrals and recommendations are the best way to go. And your gut comes into that eventually. But if you know someone who you think is really good, and they say, oh, I recommend whatever teacher, and that's a well-known person, that's usually pretty good. I finally took the plunge and took somebody's year-long mentorship program after I'd done a bunch of small classes with different people. And I was pretty sure that I'd made the right decision. It felt good, but I had this wait-and-see attitude. And a Facebook group was formed for this group, this year-long mentorship group. And the only other man in the class, it turned out, worked right across the street from me in Los Angeles, and like 4 million people live and work in LA. So, and we were literally right across the street from each other. So that was cool. It just felt like confirmation, like, oh yeah, I picked the right one. I don't want to specifically recommend or disrecommend anybody, because even though I've come across really great teachers, what's right for me may not be right for you exactly. So if you want to contact me privately and ask me a specific question or a question about a specific person, I won't give you my honest opinion. I will tell you everybody I've taken something from except one. I've had really good experiences except one. I had one bad class experience, and it was the worst online class of any kind, mediumship or otherwise, that I've taken. It was really poorly done. But that was the exception, not the rule. I've gotten some gem, some nugget out of every single class that I have taken. And often it's one thing. Even if it's a week-long course or a month-long course that meets, say, 4 times in a month or whatever it is, sometimes I'll get something and I'll go, oh, that's why I'm in this class. Like there's been something of value. So things to consider, things to keep in mind are class size. The bigger the class is, the financially better it is for the teacher, but that's not so good for you. And they can be 40 to 100 people, so that's not so great. Smaller is better for you, like 12 to 20-ish. Especially if they're prone to answering everybody's questions, because questions can go on and on and on. People can start telling stories in their questions. So, and if there's 40, 50, 60 people, that's going to eat up your practice time and your learning time. Classes can be anywhere from $20 to $1,000. So keep looking. If you think it's not affordable, there is something affordable out there. Just keep looking. And what I did was the least expensive thing I could find with various well-known teachers, just to see if I liked them, just to get a taste of them and how they taught their classes. And I do recommend doing that. And also how they run their classes. So I'm thinking of 2 well-known people, very loved people, really great mediums and good teachers, but one of them runs their classes better than the other. One of them, for example, lets questions go on and on and on, and one of them cuts to the chase. And so I prefer that style. But both great teachers, see, so I don't want to name anyone specific. You have to go with what feels right for you. My biggest issue, let me look at my notes really quick here. Yeah. Okay. My biggest issue is that you find someone who helps you to do mediumship your way. I think that's critically important, because we're all unique, and mediumship is unique to each of us. So I understand, especially with a really well-known person or even outright famous person, the desire to want to copy them. And I've done that. I've seen that with instrument classes. For me, it's the harp. Or for acting classes, I can see why you'd want to copy somebody. But mediumship is so unique and so different for everybody that I don't think that should be, you should try to copy anybody. My last video, I highly recommend, at the very end of it has a chart, and if you make your own chart and compare it to mine, you will see it's a great example of how different we all are as we're doing mediumship. So watch the video, go to the end, do your own chart and compare it to mine. It's a really good thing. If you are, here's an example of something that really annoys me about, I've heard about some teachers, I've fortunately never come across this. If you are accurate, if the information you're giving is accurate, and you're told you're not doing it right, that's BS. Because what matters is that you're passing on information that's correct. And I've heard of teachers who insist here's how you do this and here's how you do that. And so if you're getting a name but you're not hearing it, you're seeing someone with that name, that's not the right way to do it. I'm sorry, but if you're passing on accurate information, you're doing it correctly. There are 2 motivations that I can think of that could be unconscious or quite deliberate when that you're doing it the wrong way thing, when teachers are like that. And that's, first of all, an inability to teach beyond their own way of doing mediumship, which is not so good because there are plenty of teachers out there who will help you learn your own way to do it or make that space for you to open your own way to do it. And also, the more often, and this is a little unpleasant, but the more often someone's telling you, no, you're doing that the wrong way, the more you think you're doing it wrong, and you sign up for more classes and they make more money. I don't think that that's their intention, but that's how it works out with some people. So if what you're giving is accurate, you're doing it the right way, in my opinion. Even if you find a teacher who is a do-it-your-own-way kind of teacher, which I love, they still may be right for you, right? Because everybody's different. So just keep looking. I think a great litmus test is, do you like them? Or does something feel not quite right about them? Does something about them doesn't sit right with you? So liking them matters. And follow your instincts. I have to tell you, I really mean this. If life has led you to mediumship, you have instincts and you have helpers. You have people in spirit that are nudging you forward. And so just trust that. And go with it. So for example, there's one well-known medium who I know rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I happen to like that person a lot. I consider us friends outside of mediumship. So there's that. And then there's another really famous medium who people just gush over, who I don't think is that good. And I wonder, how is this person even famous, much less teaching people? So you have to go with your gut and what feels right to you on a case-by-case basis. And then the last thing I want to say about all of this is, really ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be a medium? And that it's fun and that it's interesting, that's totally valid. Exploring a new side of yourself or a new side of the world, if you didn't even know about mediumship, that's totally valid. If you're in for it for the fame, that's totally valid. I hope that you would prioritize the communication over anything else and hope that, say, something like fame or money follows. And if you're in it for the money, you're going to be disappointed. It's extremely rare to make a good living out of doing mediumship. So do not drop whatever your steady income is, don't let it go, at least not at first. In my opinion, wanting to help people, wanting to be of service to people is the best mental approach to take, and let everything else fall into line behind that, whatever the other stuff is, whether that's getting more clients or getting better at it or money or fame, whatever you're after, just being really competent at something. I go into it as an act of service, and to the point where I actually feel uncomfortable charging people, but I do because I'm charging for my time, not for the mediumship. And the reason I'm saying this, go into it as an act of service or trying to help people, is because I really think that all of the reasons, however valid they are, will lead to anywhere from regret to deep regret. I really believe that. So choose wisely. I think that's all I have to say about that. Next week, I'm going to talk about the nuggets that I've gotten from each of the classes that I've taken. There's been something good, except for that one terrible class. There's been something good in each of them, so I'm going to talk about those. As always, like this video, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All of those things help people and to see these videos. And thank you for watching this time, and see